everyone, and welcome to the RMTV Women's Podcast. This is episode 107, and today we are joined by our lovely friend Emma Sanders. Emma, how are we on this fine Wednesday lunchtime?
Good, thank you. Although it's raining, so it's not really fine.
It's not really fun, but you know.
Yeah, good. How are you both?
Good.
Yeah. All right.
Nice and positive.
No complaints, to be honest. So, could be worse.
I mean, we're still in a global pandemic. I think fine's as good as we're going to get.
Yeah. Could be worse, could be better. But
no, I'm really good. Good. Positive vibes.
That's what we like.
That's
I lost a chocolate digestive in my brew this morning, so it can only get better now from here.
Did it snap off?
Yeah. I dunked it too many times. That was it. Gone.
You got to be quick with that, the dunking action.
I feel like that's a really good debate that we could have about what's the best dunkable biscuit. But I feel like it would be too much time.
We'll have to save that for another video.
Yeah, we'll save that for another day. If you want to see us do a whole video on dunkable biscuits, let us know. But today we'll stick to football. We've got a couple of topics to discuss. The first one is one that I think only came out yesterday, late yesterday, and that is the FA launches new diversity code. So the Football Leadership Diversity Code aims to tackle racial inequality in the English game. It also hopes to increase the number of female coaches in women's football. I think that the number of coaches, obviously female coaches in women's football, is obviously quite high. But then if you think about it, across the board, not just in England but around the world, there's a lot of male coaches involved in women's football, but not a lot of female coaches involved in men's football. And I think this is what this code, one of the things this code's trying to do is tackle the amount of female coaches involved in the sport in general. I think. What's everyone's opinion on first glance of seeing the new code?
Go on, Amy, you take it.
I think it's good. Sorry, I was just reading up on what it was on there. I think it's nice that it's being like recognised that obviously it's an issue that needs to be balanced, and I think I don't necessarily think there needs to be more women than men. I just think it needs to be more evenly balanced, because at the end of the day, if they're a woman or a man and they can deliver and do the job impeccably, I think that's what matters. But equally, there needs to be an increased amount of role models for younger people to look up to, regard like whether that be a man or a woman. I think for us, obviously, it would be, we'd look up to a woman who was in the Premier League managing, for example. So you need to create those sort of moments and just bridge the gap, if that makes sense. But I think bringing in this something will definitely help generations to come in terms of providing those role models and people to look up to, and therefore get people more in the higher jobs that they're aiming for, realizing that it is possible, things like that.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a big believer in the right person should get the job. So whenever these kind of things are created, while I'm fully supportive of the kind of motive behind it, which is, as Amy says, essentially trying to provide more opportunities and bridge the gap between inequality, whether that be, men in women's football or women in men's football. My only concern is that you sort of create a bit of a pathway where you might push through diverse groups quicker than perhaps they're ready for, or when I've spoken to people who've been kind of in that position where they felt like they've had a lack of opportunities in the past, and then there's a pathway created for them, whether or not it's through a course, an internship, etc. They sometimes feel like that's kind of been put on in a way to tick a box, and it's not necessarily in their best interest. So I'm always a little bit cautious with these kind of things. And like I said, like, completely support the motive. I think it's just you've got to be very careful with the way that you execute it. And I think as long as they're given the support and the time that, you know, all other coaches are given, and they're not sort of rushed through the system and put into a position where they're perhaps not ready to take on the roles that they're being given. I think it's a really positive thing. But ultimately, you know, for me, it should always come down to whoever is the best, and they get the job. But yeah, I think everybody wants there to be more opportunities for women to get into men's football, more opportunities for women to get into women's football. You know, we'd like to see more black women involved. We'd like to see, you know, more black men involved. Hope Powell is sort of a bit of a, I hate to use this word, but like a trailblazer in kind of women's football, obviously with being a former England manager herself. So she's, you know, like Amy says, a role model and someone that people can look up to. And I think that's really, really important. But Hope has also proven that she was the best for the job. You know, she's obviously still managing WSL and doing a good job at Brighton. So she's got there via merit. And I think that's the important thing, is that it has to be via merit first and foremost. But ultimately, the main priority has to be to create that opportunity for them in the first place, to give them that pathway, to give them that support, so that we can see more women and more diverse backgrounds involved in football. And I think everybody wants that.
Yeah, I think you summed that up perfectly there. I think there's a good example of talking about like more females being involved in the men's game. Obviously, when the Chelsea job became available in the Premier League, there's a lot of talk about Emma Hayes potentially being a candidate to take that role. But obviously before Frank Lampard got it, and you know, there's a number of men's team in different parts of the world that do have female coaches or female managers. But do you think Emma Hayes, if she would have got that job, if she would have taken that job, if that was an option, that maybe it would have been maybe too soon for a female manager to sort of try and bridge that gap in the men's game?
Yeah, that's a classic example of kind of what I was talking about trying to maybe rush people through when they're not ready. And obviously it was all from people outside saying, you know, we should give Emma Hayes a chance. I don't think, with respect, I don't think it was ever a consideration within the club, because she's never worked in men's football, and it's completely different to women's football. That's not to say she doesn't know anything about it, but it's to say like the kind of personalities, the people that you're dealing with, the day-to-day job is just so different, because you have to, you know, the players are earning, you know, stupid amounts of money. They've got completely different lifestyles to women's footballers. They've got completely different personalities. They've got different circumstances. So man management, player management is completely different. So that's one example. The media scrutiny is, you know, tenfold than what you'll get in women's football. So that's another example. Things like TV, broadcasting, sponsorship, like there's a lot more kind of you have to do alongside just the general managing of the team in men's football as well. And likewise in women's football, you know, Emma Hayes will do a lot of the kind of the dirty jobs, and, you know, she'll do a lot of stuff around the training ground and around the stadium that you wouldn't expect a men's manager to do. So they're both completely different roles. So I think the fact that she was brought up in conversation was a testament to how impressive she's been in the women's game. And yeah, football is football at the end of the day. She will be extremely knowledgeable, but like you said, I think there's different factors within men's football like what there is within women's football, and I think to throw her in to a job like that in the Premier League would have been you know, just completely unfair, and I don't think she would have taken the job anyway. And I actually think, you know, she's obviously been linked with the England women's job in the past, and I think perhaps maybe the reason why she hasn't is because, you know, she might not want all of that media attention. She might want to stay at club level and sort of stay with this group of players that she is passionate about kind of giving them the opportunity for. Would she get the same out of that in men's football? I don't know. Does she even want to manage in men's football? You know, why would the Chelsea men's job be better for her than the Chelsea women's job at the moment, where they're at the peak of, you know, of the domestic league? They're challenging in Europe. They're, you know, on paper one of the best sides in the world. Hopefully they'll go and prove that in the Champions League this year. So why would she want to go to the men's team? You know, some people could argue that's a step down. Some people would argue it's a step up. I think in Emma Hayes' opinion, she's where she wants to be. So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think also, if she would have got that job for whatever reason, I don't think it would have benefited female coaches in any way, to be honest with you, because like you said, they're under more scrutiny. They've got more eyes on them. They've got, certain media outlets and certain people would have had a field day if her opening match they would have lost 4-5-0. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. She would have done a poor job in a couple of games or whatnot. Compared to, obviously Frank Lampard gets his fair share of criticism, but I feel like, for me, I think if a woman was to now get a job at a big club like Chelsea in the Premier League, I'd feel a bit like, oh, it doesn't quite feel right for me, because it feels almost too soon in terms of, Emma Hayes is a brilliant coach, and obviously she's done it so well at Chelsea over the last however many years, but it's better for her to stay with a women's side that's growing women's football rather than go into a men's team where potentially she could only last 6 or 7 months because the club feel that she's getting too much scrutiny and, they're losing whatever it is if they would have had a male coach in charge. I don't know whether you guys feel the same about that.
Yeah, I feel the same. One point that I thought when you guys were both speaking is that it's quite strange. I definitely think we're like definitely more than a few years away from that stage, possibly even 10 or so more years away from that being a thing. And I think the only way that it would be implemented if they started in a team lower down, like a League One or even lower than that, starting like that. And then things about building experience, as you guys said, it's a completely different ball game in a way. Like it is football, but equally the demands that come alongside it are completely different. But the thing that I thought was just kind of strange, like for such a long time that I can remember, Man City women have a male coach, and I've never like batted an eyelid at it ever. I've never gone, oh, they've got a women's coach, they've got a men's coach, like especially talking about the women's game. I've never sort of looked at it like that, but the whole world would look at it the other way around, saying, oh, there's a woman in the men's game, which is that's the thing that I'm like a bit like taken aback on, that it's so, to some people it would be so outrageous that would happen, whereas when it's happened in our world, in the WSL and in the women's championship, we don't think about it in that way at all. Like I never even, as I said, batted an eyelid at it. The fact that obviously it was Nick Cushing and now it's is it Taylor someone?
Taylor.
Yeah, that's the one. Sorry, my name, I don't know these names all over my head. Anyways, like I never even thought about it that way. Obviously the majority of women's WSL managers are female, but the odd two that there have been, I don't see it as I literally just don't even think about it. But thinking if it's switched the other way around, it'd be absolutely monumentous. But hopefully we get to a stage where I don't know how to word this, but the way we see men managing a WSL is the same as other people would see women managing in the Premier League. And I think we will get there eventually, but as I said, it probably has to be implemented at a lower level before it gets to that stage.
I agree, and I actually think in women's football as well, if you go lower down the period, there's actually probably more men managing than there are women. But like I do agree on that, and that's kind of where I'm saying about I wouldn't want to see a woman just put into the Premier League, because likewise I actually didn't agree with Frank Lampard's appointment, because he'd had that one spell at Derby in the Championship, and that was kind of it in terms of his managerial CV. So I wanted somebody with more experience. So it's not that I'm saying women have to go in at League Two and prove themselves, because, well, I mean, I think we all know that women have to prove themselves a bit more. That's just how it is. Until we have that first person, there's always going to be more scrutiny on women. And like you say, until it becomes the norm to see women involved in men's football, they are going to have to do 10 times better than the men just to prove a point. That's just how it is. That's not right, but it is how it is. And that will only change with more women kind of coming in and breaking those barriers and proving those people wrong. But I'd say the same with men. Like if a male coach wants to be a Premier League manager, then in my opinion, they have to go through the leagues or go, and get international experience, and they have to earn that experience coaching before they take the top job. Like the Premier League isn't just the peak of English football. Like it's regarded as, you know, by most people as the best league in the world. So, you know, it's the best managers in the world really should be among those in the Premier League. You know, the vast majority of them are probably going to be in the Premier League. So that's not to say women aren't capable of it, but it's to say you can't just go from managing like a team in the WSL to then just suddenly managing a team in the Premier League. Like, you know, you've got to earn the experience, like what, you know, male coaches have to do. So I'd love to see women come through the system and either go through the system in women's football to become a WSL coach, like what we've seen. Obviously, Vicky Jepson's done that at Liverpool. She's a classic example of someone who's come through women's football system through the FA, obviously started out in youth football and then has kind of come through the ranks, learned her trade at Liverpool, and then has been given an opportunity, and now she's a WSL manager. You know, and you can do the exact same thing in men's football. You know, go through the ranks there, do youth football there, work with the FA, coach teams lower down the league, work your way up, show what you can do, and then hopefully get that opportunity in the Premier League. That's the way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think we hit the nail on the head with everything there. So, next topic then. England's match versus Germany was cancelled due to a positive coronavirus test. A member of the Lionesses' backroom staff tested positive before their trip to Germany. I think it was, the match was supposed to be yesterday, wasn't it? Right decision, really, wasn't it? Obviously, you know, you can't be putting the squad at any more risk than they've already been exposed to, plus, you know, unnecessary travel in contact with all the Germany players as well. It just would have been silly, I think, if the game would have just went ahead. But I think the big thing that stood out to me once, you know, it did come out that there was a positive test, is that, was it necessary for an away fixture to be played now? Obviously, it was only a friendly. It wasn't really anything. The game wasn't really for anything in particular. I agreed with the camp, but then also you think, well, was there a point for the camp as well? Obviously, there's been a big breakout. Obviously, England's coronavirus cases have risen dramatically over the last couple of weeks. It just puts people at unnecessary risk, really, doesn't it?
I'll let Amy answer this first because I think I might be a bit controversial here.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, but just to say, by the way, for that game being cancelled, it meant I had a day off yesterday. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of get what you mean. I said right from the beginning of like COVID stuff, regardless of whether it was men or women, like just purely because I'm not a giant international football fan. I'll watch it if it's on, but I'm not like waiting for it to like be on. I'm not like there at 7 o'clock in the morning like, oh, there's a game tonight. No. But I think
you're even awake at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, not anymore. I used to be pretty good, but I think age has hit me and I sleep in a bit now. But I feel like there's two sides to it. There's obviously one that, yeah, it seems slightly unnecessary if it's just a friendly, but then two, there's a stack now of consecutive giant competitions that are coming up, like Euros, Olympics, blah, 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 everything like that. And you think to yourself, well, when is there going to be any sort of preparation? So I guess these would be the games that happens in. But then equally, does preparation come before safety and things like that? Well, in this age and time of day, probably not. But there's obviously reasons as to why, obviously sponsorships as well, things have to go ahead in order to generate that sort of money, and then if not, a lot of people lose out on it. So there's definitely reasons for and against it. Personally, I think it was probably a bit unnecessary. Just have the England they did home and away again this time, didn't they? They did that last camp, so that could have been enough. But you ultimately want to test yourself against other teams. That's how you learn about your squad. That's how you make changes and you move forward. So there's understandability as to why it's gone ahead. It just seems, especially like as you said, cases are rising quite significantly, and there was recently a little breakout within the WS. I think Emma, you tweeted something like 10 return back positive, which has been the most that there has been so
Yeah.
so far.
My
that's been
understanding,
going
by
on.
the way, is about 9 of them are actually in the Championship, not the WSL.
Okay.
But
Right, interesting.
anyway,
The players stay at home.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really confusing, and people have got actions for it and stuff, but traveling out away that far, is could you not do, I mean, it's different if it's a qualifier is more, obviously Northern Ireland played a qualifier, Wales have been playing qualifiers for Euros, so they're like need to be played because when else are you going to play them? But friendlies, maybe you've got to shout for, is that really necessary at this point in time? But there's 2 and 4, isn't there? It's super hard to make those decisions, and I'm glad I'm not the one that has to.
yeah, I have to admit, while obviously safety is the main thing, you have to play at some point, and you can't go a whole year without England meeting before, like you say, Amy, back-to-back major tournaments. We're getting to one of the most crucial times in this country that we've had in years in terms of major tournaments. We've obviously got an Olympics, and then we've got a home Euros. We've got a new manager coming in, probably after the Olympics. We don't know who's taking on Team GB. We'll find out in November. I've got a very strong inkling of who I think it might be, but I think that the case is that England have to come together at some point. They have to train, they have to play, and I think most importantly, yes, look, you can play in-house friendly games, but that's not proper competitive fitness. That's not match fitness. That's not testing yourselves. That's just another training game. That's not the next level that you need in order to prepare for an international game, because they're playing against these players domestically week in, week out. They're playing alongside them during training camps. So what good really is that doing? I would argue not much. So I think you have to play games. I would argue that the safety measures that have been put in place, the bubbles that are being formed, the precautions that are being taken by the FA in particular, who, look, they get criticised for a lot of things, but actually I think the way that they're handling in terms of the day-to-day testing, the bubbles, the protocols that are being put in place, especially at St George's Park, and the way that England team will be travelling to and from games, is probably one of the safest FA environments in Europe, I would say. So they're probably at less risk really being with England than what they actually are with their clubs, which I know sounds a bit crazy because you've got people coming from all different areas of the country, but they're getting tested like every week. So the whole point of that is so that what players are coming into contact with what other players, and then they can self-isolate, so that you're kind of controlling the environment. And like I say, you're going to get cases. We have seen a rise in cases, but like I said, my understanding was that there was a breakout at one club in particular, and the majority of them were in the Championship, where players are going to be moving around a lot more because they work outside of football, so they're going to be coming into contact with probably more people than the WSL bubbles will be. They might not, perhaps, if they're part-time rather than full-time, obviously they might spend a little bit more time outside of the house and outside of the training ground bubble as well. They might be having to use public transport, that kind of stuff, because they can't rely on club members perhaps coming and picking them up. So there's all different reasons why that could be the case. But I think ultimately, like I say, at some point they have to try and get on with things, because it's not going away anytime soon. And I think, like I said, the best thing to do, the best way they can do that is to kind of manage it and be on top of it, which they are doing with the testing. And they reacted really quickly as soon as they got the results through. Whoever came into contact with that person would have self-isolated. Players were sent back to their club bubbles. The reason why the players aren't having to self-isolate, as a team as a whole, is because the member of staff kept 2 meters apart. They followed the protocols. They sort of had their own. I mean, Lauren, you'll know because you've been to a game. I don't know, Amy, whether you're aware of this, but there's kind of zones within each bubble. So there's like a green, an amber, and a red. So kind of, the red zone, which I think is like the players, is very much a they're the ultimate bubble, like very strict measures. And then you've kind of got amber, which is might be medical staff, press officers, and then obviously you've kind of got like the press, which are kind of in like another zonal bubble. So I think the measures that are put in, I think, is safe enough. And yeah, like I said, I think they've probably got more risk picking up coronavirus from going to the petrol station or going to the shop when they're outside of football than what they will do actually on international duty. So I sympathise with people. I sympathise with people because, you know, they may just want their own players to stay around domestically and, you know, focus on club football. But international football, it has to be played. It's the pinnacle of the sport. It's what puts the game on the map. It's what gets TV views. You know, and they're all building up to a major tournament. And yes, health is the absolute priority. And that was why the Germany game was called off, because they prioritised health. But you have to try and play football.
Yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? Because you're absolutely right in terms of they're probably more at risk when they go and get their weekly shop than they are when they go to an England camp. It's just, I think it's just one of those unfortunate circumstances that's happened that, you know, one person's tested positive, you know, they could have been asymptomatic, anything, they couldn't have been showing any signs of it. And like you said, they've all followed the protocols, and, you know, it probably hasn't put the camp in general at as much risk as it probably seems to us from the outside looking in. It's just, yeah, you're absolutely right. You do have to get on with it, and, you know, things aren't going to get back to normal if, you know, stuff like this doesn't happen. And obviously you don't want to see positive cases happening, but at the end of the day, it's bound to happen to someone eventually, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is at the minute. You can't help the fact, and yeah, it's just going to be hard just to sort of try and wrap your head around the fact that, you know, all these are going to happen. Things are going to happen like this for the future. You don't know how long it's going to last for, but you do have to sort of get a sense of normality back for the players and for clubs in general, because, you know, if you continue to just sort of not put yourself in any of these positions, then it's just going to, you know, you're not going to be able to sort of just get on with things. So yeah, I think it's just one of them things that's just happened at the minute, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that, you know, no players test positive or anything like that, and everyone stays safe. One thing, obviously, there's been a few international fixtures for other, obviously, some Euro qualifiers and that, but, you know, every week we talk about Rachael Furness. She's becoming like the Phil Neville of our podcast now, Amy. We used to talk about Phil Neville every week, and now it's Rachael Furness every week.
I think I prefer it being Rachael Furness than Phil Neville.
I agree. But
I won't comment.
But Northern Ireland produced a heroic performance to win 1-0 in their European Championship qualifier in Belarus. They went down to 10 players. So they spent more than an hour at the game with 10 players. But Fernie, with the goal, was it a header? Like, she loves a header, doesn't she? She's both domestically and internationally, she's just outperforming everyone, really, isn't she?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I mean, like, she's got the Midas touch, hasn't she, at the moment? Like, she's just. Yeah, I think it was a mixed night for Liverpool girls, really, because obviously, like, you know, like Rachael Roberts, for example, like with Wales, that was such a disappointing result for them. And you think by Fernie giving Northern Ireland the win, they've probably kind of, you know, got themselves a foot ahead of Wales in terms of qualification. So big night for Northern Ireland, very disappointing night for Wales. But yeah, Fernie just seems to. She's in the right place at the right time, or, you know, in every game. She's full of confidence, which we've seen ever since she joined Liverpool. You know, she arrived in January. She finished the season as our top scorer in the WSL, and she was only there for like 3 months before football stopped. So I think that in itself shows something. And then obviously she started this season. She's been on fire. She picked up Player of the Month last month. And she's just. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say about her? Like, she just goes about a game. I think, like, the thing which I love about her is that she's just so normal. I mean, yeah, she's also hilariously wacky as well, but just like in terms of just the way she is, she just kind of gets up plays football, does the job, goes home. That's pretty much like she's
She does
just
the
so.
talking on the pitch, doesn't she? Really, she leaves it all on there. She's quite a quiet person, like off the pitch, in terms of you don't see her going out doing all these different things, but she does most of the talking on the pitch. She's what you want from a player. I guess she's like a media person's dream, like a PR dream.
Yeah, you're right though. Like she does, she leads by her performances, and like at the moment she's just scoring consistently. But yeah, for me, it's just about getting in those positions, and obviously Northern Ireland had to really fight and struggle for that. I think Becky Flaherty came on in goal, and I don't think she's played for like a year. Sheffield United's keeper, so kudos to her for sort of coming on. I think she made a save like not too long after coming on, which sort of settled her down. But Fernie, as usual, led that team really, and just obviously got the all important goal. So another great night for her, and hopefully she can do it for Liverpool against is it Lewis or Lose? I never know how to say their name.
I say Lose.
I say Lose, but
yeah, I think it's Lose. But yeah,
I think it bodes well for us, doesn't it? Obviously, because we have got a big week. Obviously, play Sunday, then we play City in the Cup, and then we play Sheffield United. So it's a big week coming up for Liverpool this week. But just quickly, Amy, do you think that puts Fernie now as probably one of the best number 10s in women's football at the minute?
I think she's definitely worth a shout, that's for sure. It's kind of hard to say with all the disruptions. I think it's about longevity, isn't it? It's all very, very well and say, yeah, players in form, whatever. Personally, I think of someone who's the best in the world, who's been the best in the world or up there for several seasons on end, which I think is fair to say. Yeah. But in terms of even leadership as well, like it's just phenomenal. She's not the she's a vice captain, but to me she acts like a captain, and as someone who supports the club she plays for, it's kind of what you want to see. But she's definitely up there. I think she's been able to add more goals to a game this season in particular, which bodes well anyways. And it's just super commanding. Can just take the game by the scruff of the neck and really be like an individual performer in some games where maybe the people around her aren't. So she can really bring the team through in that way. And I think we're super lucky to have her. And I can't believe that she was only with us for 3 months before we went into lockdown. It feels like she's been with us for seasons. So I think she's got the potential to definitely be one of the best, especially in England for sure. But I mean, we're kind of biased, aren't we?
I think it's fair to say like she's definitely one of the most informed in the country. I think I think you'd put her in that sort of bracket of one of the best number 10s in the country. But I think when you're speaking about world football, it's just kind of another level, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of like
the martyrs and things like that.
Those kind of bit of world class players. So but yeah, we love Fernie.
We do.
Well,
Fernie fan club.
Fernie fan club, yeah. Get it going. Look at Twitter account, Amy, go on.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Little bit weird.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm just saying it.
But yeah, that's everything on today's agenda to discuss. Thank you very much, Emma, for joining us. A very short notice when we asked you.
No worries.
Good job you were off.
Super sub.
I'm not off, I'm working today. Well, just not working until later.
Oh, sorry we distracted you from your Voldemort slaying.
Yeah, I was playing Harry Potter Lego because I'm 10 years old, so...
Don't even say you're 10 years old because it's an amazing game. I'd play it when I was 50.
It's so good. It's just having a bit of downtime before work.
I used to play the Star Wars Lego. That was a good time.
Oh, nice.
The little Lego lightsaber that shot out. You press triangle and it... yeah. And like slaying all these. I remember you used to be like Jabba the Hutt, and like he would be the one that can jump like twice as high than everyone else. So for like certain levels, you had to use him. Oh,
yeah. Well, I'm just going to I'm going to go and kill Voldemort now.
Standard Wednesday afternoon.
Yes. Mission complete.
Well, enjoy that.
Even Fernie could slay Voldemort.
If Fernie would have done it by now, she wouldn't have been messing around on a podcast. She just would have got it done.
He'd have headed him out of the way.
That's the title of the pod. Rachael Furness slays Voldemort. Done.
There you go. No, honestly, if that is not the title for the pod, then I'm not promoting it. I'm not retweeting it or anything.
I'll make that the title. Okay. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like the video, comment, subscribe to our channel. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and we will see you all on Sunday with some post-match content. But yeah,
is the game like shown at this point, or
yeah, it's on FA Player, isn't it?
Oh, thank God.
Thank God for that. Don't get our hopes up, Emma, and then go. I think.
I don't know. I'm at Wembley, so.
Get away. No one cares.
Friends.
Just got the cred through, so.
Oh, the cred.
Yeah.
Street cred.
Oh my God, let's get off. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll see you next time with a new video. Bye.
Bye.